This is Mrs. Appia with Lesson 23 from Module 2, Solving Equations Using Algebra. Student outcomes for this lesson. Students use algebra to solve equations of the form px plus q equals r and p times the quantity x plus q equals r, where p, q, and r are specific rational numbers, using techniques of making 0, adding the additive inverse, and making 1, multiplying by the multiplicative inverse, to solve for the variable. Students identify and compare the sequence of operations used to find the solution to an equation algebraically with the sequence of operations used to solve the equation with tape diagrams. They recognize the steps as being the same. Students solve equations for the value of the variable using inverse operations by making 0, adding the additive inverse, and making 1, multiplying by the multiplicative inverse. The essential question for this lesson is, how do you make 0 with a constant and how do you make 1 with a coefficient? The youth group is going on a trip to the amusement park in another part of the state. The trip cost each group member $150, and this includes $85 for the hotel and 2 one-day combination entrance and meal plan passes. Write an equation representing the cost of the trip. Let P be the cost of a park pass. Let's highlight the important information for this problem. We know that the trip is going to cost each person $150, and that $150 is going to pay for $85 for the hotel and 2 one-day combination entrance and meal plan passes. So you're buying 2 tickets and $85 for the hotel. Write an equation representing the cost of the trip. Let P be the cost of the park passes. Then solve the equation algebraically to find the cost of the park pass. So we've got $85 for the hotel, and we have 2 passes that we're buying, and we know that that is going to add up to a sum of $150. So we don't know the cost of the pass, but we know that we're buying 2 of them. So we're going to multiply 2 times the cost of a pass, and it says to use P for the cost of a pass. So that will be 2 times P for the cost of the passes. In addition, you have to pay $85. So you're going to pay both for the passes and the $85. When you pay both of those, that is going to total the $150 cost for the trip. So this is our equation to solve to find the cost of a park pass. Now to solve that problem, remember that we want to make zeros and ones. We're going to make 0 with the constant of 85. The additive inverse of 85 is subtracting 85 or adding a negative. So we are going to subtract 85, and the subtraction property of equality says that if you subtract 85 from one side of the equation, you must do the same operation with the same number on the other side of the equation to make it equal. So on the left side, this is going to equal a 0 pair, and 2p plus 0 is 2p, and 100 minus 85 is 65. So $65 is the cost of the 2 park passes, and we want to know how much 1 park pass costs. So we have to divide the 65 by 2. So here we're using the multiplicative inverse of 2, which is 1/2. So you can think of this 2 ways. You can think of it as multiplying by half or dividing by 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. So there's that 1 we were looking for. And 1 times P is P. And 65 divided by 2 is $32.50. So we have solved our equation for P, and P is the cost of the park pass. Write the reason that justifies each step using if-then statements. So our step right here was subtracting 85 from both sides of the equation, and the if-then statement is if, and I'll highlight it here, if 2 times P plus 85 is equal to 10, and we subtract 85 from both sides of the equation, then the equation will remain equal. For the next one, we divided by 2. So your if-then statement is, if 2p equals 65, then 2p divided by 2 is equal to 65 divided by 2. Model the problem using a tape diagram to check your work. So we're going to do that up here. And we have the cost of one park pass and the cost of the other park pass, and they cost the same amount, so they are the same size. And then the additional cost is $85 for the ticket. The sum of these bars add up to $150. So if we want to see how much is spent just on the park passes, let's see, are we checking this? Or yes, we're checking this, so we're not solving it. So here, to check your work, we've got $32.50 for each ticket. Then, if this is correct, all of these numbers will have a sum of $150. So either with paper and pencil or with a calculator, add those up. Then indeed, they do equal $150. So we found out that our answer is correct. If it did not equal $150, then you would have made probably an arithmetic mistake. Next, suppose you want to buy your favorite ice cream bar while at the amusement park, and it costs $2.89. You purchase the ice cream bar and 3 bottles of water, and you pay with a $10 bill and receive no change. So that means that the ice cream bar and the 3 bottles of water together cost exactly $10. And the question is asking, how much did each bottle of water cost? So write an equation to model this situation. Well, this picture is nice here because it tells us that the cost of the 3 bottles plus the cost of the ice cream is going to equal $10. So we'll go ahead and write that out. We don't know the cost of one bottle, but we know that we're getting 3 of them. Let's use B for bottle. So 3 times the bottle. When we're working with arithmetic or algebra, we don't need to use a times sign here, so we'll just write that as 3B. So 3B represents the cost of the 3 bottles. Added to that is the cost of the ice cream, which is $2.89. It has a sum of $10. Now, remember that we're doing PEMDASO, and we check to see if we can simplify first, and there is nothing to simplify because 3B and 289 are unlike terms. They cannot be added together. So then we go in the opposite direction, doing the opposite operations. So we're going to undo any addition and subtraction. So here we have adding 289. The opposite of adding 289 is subtracting 289. So this is the additive inverse. And we do that on both sides of the equation. That is the subtractive property of equality. So here we're getting a 0 with our constants, and the purpose of that is to isolate the 3b. So bring down your 3b and your equal sign, and then you do the math, and $10 minus $2.89 equals $7.11. So we just used an if-then statement, and it looks like this. If 3b plus 289 equals 10, then 3b plus 289 minus 289 will equal $10 minus 289. Now we have 3b is equal to 11, and that means to multiply 3 times b. So now we'll undo multiplication and division. 3b means 3 times b, so we will use division. You use the opposite operation. There are 2 ways that you could do that. You could do multiplying by the reciprocal, and the reciprocal of 3 is 1/3. The other way to do it is to use simple division. Dividing by 3 is equivalent to multiplying by its reciprocal 1/3. So we're going to show this with division. Divide by 3 and divide by 3. You do the same thing with the same number on both sides of the equation to keep it equal. This is an if-then statement that says, if 3b is equal to 11, then 3b divided by 3 is equal to 7.11 divided by 3. So we'll go ahead and do that division. 3 divided by 3 is 1, and 1 times b is b. $7.11 divided by 3 is $2.37. And that means that the cost of one bottle of water is $2.37. Model the problem using a tape diagram to check your work. So our tape diagram, we would have a bottle of water, a bottle of water, a bottle of water, and an ice cream bar. The ice cream bar is $2.89. Each bottle of water costs $2.37. And it should have a sum of $10. So pause the video, add those up, and make sure they add up to $10. And they do, so we have proven that our answer, $2.37 per bottle, is correct. For Charlotte's allowance, Charlotte receives a weekly allowance from her parents. She spent half this week's allowance at the movies. Half of this week's allowance was at the movies, but she earned an additional $4 performing extra chores. She did not spend any additional money, and she finished the week with $12. What is Charlotte's weekly allowance? Write an equation that can be used to find the original amount of Charlotte's weekly allowance. Let A be the value of Charlotte's original weekly allowance. So we know that she spent half of her allowance at the movies. So half of her allowance is left over. Half of the allowance plus the $4 that she earned doing the extra chores adds up to the $12. So right here, the A represents her allowance. Half of the allowance is left over, plus the $4 that she earned doing chores, and that equals the $12 that she still has. So now we want to solve the equation to find the original amount of allowance. First thing we want to do is to follow PEMDASO. PEMDAS simplifies your equation before you start to solve it. So we check and see there is nothing that we can do. We cannot add a half of A to 4 because they are unlike terms. So now we're ready to solve the equation. So we're going to work in the opposite direction, doing the opposite operations. Undoing addition and subtraction first. So we want to undo this addition with subtraction. We want a zero pair, so we're going to subtract 4. Plus 4 and minus 4 equals 0, and 1/2 A plus 0 is 1/2 A. 12 minus 4 is 8. Now, to finish this problem, we know that half of A is 8. In order to find the answer here, remember that this means to multiply. So we do the opposite operation, which is to divide. So we are going to divide both sides of that equation by 1/2. Well, if you're going to divide by 1/2, remember that to divide fractions, you have to multiply by the reciprocal, which is going to be 2 over 1. And 2 over 1 as a whole number is 2. So here we're going to multiply by the reciprocal, and I'm going to write this out first as a fraction. So 2 over 1 and 2 over 1. Then on the left side of the equation, these 2's cancel each other out because a number divided by itself is 1, and then 1 divided by 1 is 1, and 1 times A is A. On this side of the equation, remember that we're multiplying 8 over 1 times 2 over 1, which is just 8 times 2, and that's 16. So now let's check and see if that makes sense with a tape diagram. We have half of A, so let's draw a bar down here, and if this represents A, then we know that half of A plus 4 more equals 12. So this part makes the $12. So if we take 4 away from 12, that will give us the amount that this bar represents. So right here, 12 minus 4 is 8. So this part represents 8, and the total represents 12. So these are the same size sections right here, so this would also be 8. So then that makes the whole allowance $16, which is what we found up here. Then it says explain your answer in the context of this problem. So the answer is 16. So Charlotte receives $16 in allowance each week. We're going to skip this question and this question, and this is our last problem. Ellen's team was also required to buy 2 pair of uniform pants and 2 baseball caps, which cost $68. A pair of pants costs $12 more than a baseball cap. Write an equation that represents the situation, and let C represent the cost of a baseball cap. So let's see, we want an equation. We're going to be buying a cap and a cap. That's the 2 baseball caps. And we're going to be buying 2 pairs of pants, plus pants, plus pants. And the total of that is $68. So then it says that a pair of pants costs $6 more than a baseball cap. So the pants cost as much as the cap, but $12 more. And these pants cost the cost of a cap plus $12 more. So here we have, we can put it all together. We're buying 2 caps and we're buying 2 pairs of pants, and the pants cost C plus 12. So instead of writing C plus 12 and C plus 12, I chose to write it this way with 2 times the quantity, C plus 12. And that equals $68. There is more than one way to solve this problem. This is just the way I'm choosing to set it up. So here, what I want to do now is I want to distribute the 2 to both of those because I wanted just to demonstrate the distributive property. So we want cap plus 12 twice, and that means we need to pay for 2 caps and we need to pay the additional $12 for each one. So that's 2 times caps plus 2 times 12. And then I'm just going to bring down the cost of the 2 caps right here and the $68. So here I've got 2 times the cost of a cap plus 2 times the cost of a cap plus 2 times 12. And 2 times 12 is equal to 24. Next, I'm going to combine these because this 2C represents C plus C, and this 2C represents C plus C. So altogether I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 4C. So 2C plus 2C is 4C. Plus the 24 equals 68. So all that I've done here, this is all part of the PEMDAS process that you simplify before you solve. So I did the distributive property here with the 2, and that gave me 2 times C plus 2 times 12. And then I did that multiplication next. Now I have all addition, so I combined my like terms. And here at this point, there's no more simplifying that I can do, so I'm ready to solve for C. So at this point, we use PEMDASO, and O means in the opposite direction, doing the opposite operation. So we undo addition and subtraction, and here we have addition, so we'll use subtraction. And we subtract 24 from both sides of the equation. This equals a 0 pair. Bring down your 4C. And 68 minus 24 is $44. Then we need to split that $44 evenly 4 ways. A number divided by itself is 1, and 1 times C is C. 44 divided by 4 is 11. So we've solved the equation and we have C equals 11. What that means is that C represents the cost of a baseball cap. So the cost of a cap is $11. Model the problem using a tape diagram in order to check your work. So our tape diagram would look like this. I'm going to use a section for a cap, and we're buying 2 caps. And then I'm also going to, and I'm going to change colors here, I'm going to buy the pants, and the pants cost 12 more than a cap. So this would be the cost of the cap, and then this would be the extra $12. And then the other pair of pants would be the cost of a cap plus $12 more. So here we have cap, 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 and cap, and the 12 and the 12. All of that adds up to $68. Then let's reorganize our bar so that we have the caps on one side and the constants on the other. So we'll have $12 on the end here, and then the 4 caps here. This is the 4 caps plus the $24, and we know that that equals $68. So checking our work, we have the cost of a cap is $11. So that would be 11 plus 11 plus 11 plus 11 plus 12 plus 12. If we add all of that together and we get $68, then our answer is correct. So go ahead and pause the video, check that out, and see if it equals $68. So we have the cost of the cap is $11, and then the cost of a pair of pants. Well, the cost of a pair of pants that we found before is 12 more than the cost of a cap. And the cost of a cap is $11. So $11 plus $12 equal the cost of a pair of pants. And that equals $23. In summary, equations are useful to model and solve real-world problems. The steps taken to solve an algebraic equation are the same steps used in an arithmetic solution.